Deep in the heart of Rome, Paul sat in a small house. Though he was a prisoner and couldn't leave, his heart was full of joy. He spent his days telling everyone he met about God's love. One day, a young man named Onesimus came to visit him. Onesimus was a runaway who was far from home and felt very lost. Paul welcomed him with open arms, and they soon became the best of friends. As they talked, Onesimus shared a secret. He had once worked for a man named Philemon in a distant city called Colossae. But Onesimus had run away, and he feared he had let Philemon down. Paul smiled because he knew Philemon very well. Philemon was a kind man who also loved God. Paul told Onesimus that even when we make big mistakes, there is always a way to make things right. While staying with Paul, Onesimus changed. He helped Paul with his work and learned how to be kind, honest, and brave. Paul loved him like a son. But they both knew that Onesimus couldn't stay in Rome forever. To truly start a new life, Onesimus had to return to Philemon and ask for forgiveness. Paul decided to help by writing a very special letter. Paul called for his trusted friend Tychicus to help with the journey. Paul handed the finished scroll to Tychicus and said, "Take this to our friend Philemon. It is a letter of peace." Paul knew that Tychicus would protect Onesimus on the long road ahead. They shared a meal together, preparing for the big adventure that would lead them back to Colossae. The journey was long and dusty. Tychicus and Onesimus traveled over high mountains and across the sparkling blue sea. As they walked, Onesimus felt nervous. He wondered if Philemon would still be angry. Tychicus stayed close, reminding him of Paul's words. "God's love makes us all brothers," Tychicus said. "Have courage, for you are going home as a new man." Finally, the walls of Colossae appeared in the distance. Onesimus took a deep breath. He remembered the streets he had run away from so long ago. Tychicus led the way to Philemon's house, where a group of friends were gathered. Onesimus stayed a few steps behind, his heart beating fast, while Tychicus stepped forward to announce their arrival. The gate swung open, and there stood Philemon. He was surprised to see Tychicus, and his eyes widened when he saw Onesimus standing there too. Tychicus stepped forward and handed Philemon the letter from Paul. "A message from our brother in Rome," Tychicus said warmly. Philemon took the scroll, his face showing a mix of surprise and curiosity. Philemon went inside to read the letter with his wife, Apphia. They sat together as he unrolled the parchment. Paul's words were full of love. Paul wrote, "I am sending Onesimus back to you, but not as a servant. Receive him as a beloved brother." Paul even offered to pay back anything Onesimus owed. Apphia smiled as she listened, feeling the warmth of Paul's request for mercy. Philemon walked back out to the courtyard where Onesimus was waiting. Onesimus began to apologize, but Philemon didn't wait for him to finish. Remembering Paul's words and God's forgiveness, Philemon reached out and pulled Onesimus into a big hug. The old anger was gone, replaced by a new kind of friendship. They weren't just master and servant anymore, they were family. That evening, everyone gathered for a great feast. Tychicus told stories of Paul's bravery in Rome, and Onesimus shared how his life had changed. Philemon looked around the table and realized that forgiveness is like a bridge that brings people together. Through Paul's letter and a little bit of courage, a runaway had found his way home, and a broken friendship was made stronger than ever before.